Morning, brothers and sisters. Back for another video. We're supposed to be looking at Jude, which is a whole one chapter. Ooh, and it's a good chapter. The more I delved into it, the further the Spirit took me deeper into so much more understanding of really so many aspects of the Old Testament that I didn't even know was there. I hope to share at least a portion of it with you. And that was all in looking at Jude, just a portion of Jude. So we're going to look into it right now. We'll read. I won't read the entire chapter. I'll read to verse, let me see. We'll read to verse 11, okay? But we're really going to try to focus on verses 3 to 8. But 9 and 10 and 11 we'll discuss somewhat as well. We're just simply going to get into that anyway by discussing the previous aspects of it. The Spirit kept leading me deeper and deeper into these concealed elements, I guess, in the scriptures that most of us are not aware that are there unless the Spirit really does decide and determine to show them to us. And that comes by way of us sincerely seeking it. So we all know that. If we're true saints of God, we already know that, don't we? Okay, so let's read it. Jude 1. Jude, the servant of Jesus Christ, the brother of James, to them that are sanctified by God the Father, it says. We're going to show you where it's really mother. And preserved in Jesus Christ and called, verse 2, mercy unto you and peace and love be multiplied. Now these are the next verses that we're really going to look at closely. Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that ye should earnestly contend. That means has the idea of a struggle, to prevail over an enemy, that you're at war with an enemy. That ye should earnestly contend for the faith that was once delivered unto you. Verse 4. For there are certain men crept in unawares, who were before of old. They were ordained long ago to do this to the word. And it began long ago in the word. And we're going to show you how that all began through the nation of Israel. So who were before of old ordained to this condemnation, ungodly men, turning the grace of our God into lasciviousness. I can say it when the camera's not on. The minute it comes on, I can't say it. Lasciviousness. And denying the only Lord God in our Lord Jesus Christ. Verse 5. I will therefore put you... Now, you're looking at two there. You're looking at... And denying the only Lord God and our Lord Jesus Christ. So you're looking at two there. You understand that. Verse 5. I will therefore put you in remembrance, though ye once knew this, how that the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt afterward, destroyed them that believed not. Verse 6. And the angels, which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, have been reserved in everlasting chains under darkness, unto the judgment of the great day. 7. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Now, homosexuality in the Old Testament is referred to in this manner, going after strange flesh. Okay, it's often referred to in that manner. So Sodom and Gomorrah comes in. But prior to that, we're looking at the angels. Isn't that odd? Verse 8, likewise also these filthy dreamers. This is the verse that we're really going to take our magnifying glass and set it over and really just examine the words that's in there and what it leads us into deeply into the Old Testament. Likewise also these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, they despise dominion, and they speak evil of dignities. Now we're going to look at all those words. All right, we're going to set a magnifying glass right over it for you. Verse 9. This one, I always remembered it from the time I heard it in my childhood. I was saved at the age of 11. I always referred to it as the summer I turned 12. So it's been many years for me. And, you know, over all my years of going to various churches, there was 2 or 3 that we went to. I was raised in one from my childhood up, and then we left, like I said, late in my teens. And then we eventually ended up in the final one that we ended up in. But, you know, nowhere did anybody ever go into depth about what this verse meant. And I, for a long time, as I began to mature, I thought, well, there's no way anyone can ever really fully discover what these verses mean here, what this verse 9 means in particular. But you know what? We can. We can actually piece it together. It's all in there. And this is verse 9. Yet Michael, the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, the Lord rebuke thee. Well, now that verse has always stuck in my mind from the time I heard it in my childhood. I never forgot that verse. It fascinated me. Verse 10, but these speak evil of those things which they know not, but what they know naturally as brute beasts. In these things they corrupt themselves. Verse 11, woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily. Watch how we're going to connect it to Balaam. And ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward, and perished in the gainsaying of Korah. That's actually Korah in the Old Testament. Now, all right, we're going to end up showing you what that verse 11 means, because it's actually going to come out when we get really put in the magnifying glass on verse 8. So let's do that. All right, I don't want to get leg in here, but I'm going to leg. Okay, so likewise also these filthy dreamers. Well, that number there in your Strong's Greek is going to take you to 1797. And it simply means to dream while asleep, a daydreamer. Oh, they're daydreaming. In which the believer contemplates or meditates. But it's also in connection with the wrong kind of dreaming, and we're going to show you where that is. This hoping, desiring opposes God's kingdom, and then expects such personal aspirations to be granted. This shows someone is completely out of touch with the principles of God's kingdom. Now, you're going to point your finger at me. That's okay. You feel free. You point your finger. We're going to take you to Jeremiah 23. All right? With these filthy dreamers. And we're going to show you what these filthy dreamers were actually dreaming about. Because it tells it to us. And we're actually going to link it back to a previous study that we did. And that previous study was on Isaiah 46. A burden that they couldn't deliver. We link it to childbirth or travailing and birthing to bring forth something. Well, common sense tells you men can't do that. Right? Based on current theology alone ought to show you that. Just common sense ought to show you that. Reasoning with the Spirit ought to show you that. So verse 23. Did I mark my verses out? I wasn't expecting really to do this verse, but I ended up with time to myself unexpectedly. So I have the time to put the video up, I think, if the Spirit will guide me. And I prayed that she would, the Spirit. Okay. So, where are these filthy dreamers here? Just give me a second here, as usual. Now I'm hoping I can get through my allotted time here. Okay, so it's further in. So let's start at verse... And we might skip, all right? We just might skip over the verses for the sake of time. I'm sorry about this. I don't mean to do this. It's just the way that I tend to do a video. Sorry. Okay. We'll start at verse 25, but I would recommend going in and reading Jeremiah 23. Actually, the early chapters of Jeremiah 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 9. They're amazing chapters. The entire book of Jeremiah will be quite an eye-opener if you really go in to study it and study the words, the language, and what Jeremiah is really trying to show most of us. So verse 25, I have heard what the prophet said, that prophesy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed, I have dreamed. All right? Verse 26, how long shall this be in the heart of the prophets that prophesy lies? Yea, there are prophets of the deceit of their own heart. So, what did it say here? Imaginations of their own mind. They're making it up as they go, what they like, what sounds good to them. Verse 27, this is important. Which think to cause my people to forget my name by their dreams, which they tell every man to his neighbor, as their fathers have forgotten my name for, what's the word here? Baal. B-A-A-L. Now, I know we read verse 11 in Jude, and it said this, woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the error of Balaam, for reward, and perished in the gainsaying of Kor. Now, I couldn't, and it was actually quite easy to do, but it takes you time for the Spirit to show you things. It's like a big wind-up. But I, for a long time, was attempting to do this. Right? This thought entered my mind. I don't know if you can see it here. I was trying to connect the name Balaam here. This one appears in verse 11 of Jude, right? And he's the prophet that was hired by Balak the king to try to curse the nation of Israel. But I was trying to connect him to Baal worship. And I did. Indeed, I did. That's exactly where it stems from. All right? And we're going to attempt to show you that. I'm losing time. I'm not going to be able to show it all to you. So which think to cause my people to err and forget my name for Baal. Right? Verse 28. The prophet that had the dream, let him tell a dream. And he that hath my word, let him speak my word faithfully. What is the chaff to the wheat, saith the Lord. Now, this verse, it's not a condemnation to anybody who's saying they're having visions or dreams. That's not what this is. All right? We're talking about these false dreamers. That's what we're talking about. And we're told in the book of Joel that in the end of days, we'll see visions and dreams. We're going to have that. But I honestly believe that we can link this to a verse that we find in 2 Timothy verse 2. Chapter 2. Sorry about that. And we'll just read it quickly here, just so that we maybe get a better understanding of what we're to do in this contest, that we're to prevail over our enemy. So what does it say in verse 2, chapter 2, verse 5? 2 Timothy, chapter 2, verse 5, what does it say? It says this, and if a man also strive for masteries, yet is he not crowned, except he strive lawfully. So what is that saying? Well, it's saying if you enter a contest and you expect to win the contest, you're going to have to play by the rules. You're going to have to play by the laws, right? So we know when you enter a contest, they set a whole bunch of regulations on that contest. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this, but you can't do this. So I think what we're actually looking at is if we're going to present our case, and I keep hitting on this because the Bible keeps hitting on this. I see this the more I study it, the words I see, the Spirit is showing it to me, that in a sense we're presenting our case. What do you think witnesses means? Witness is a legal term. Present your witnesses, right? So we're presenting our case. And what that verse in Timothy is saying, you better present it within the guidelines, within the law that is permissible. And the way that we do that, we can't bring our visions and our dreams to the table and say, well, I've been told this, I've been shown this. You know, if we're going to present our case and break down the strategy of our enemy that they've put in place against us, and this brings us back to the snare that has been laid against the daughters of Zion, all right? And I could talk an hour about the daughters of Zion, what I've been shown on them, and how they were the hand. No, I'm not going to go into it. I might choose another video, I don't know. It'll be the way the Spirit shows me. But it says you must present your case according to the perimeters that's granted you. And so we have to do that through the Word. We have to break down the Word, and we have to present our case. Now you understand the enemies had 6,000 years to build their case against us and lay a snare to prevent us from finding out the truth about what's really going on here. Alright? That's called strategy by the enemy. If you don't know how wise our enemy is, then we're not really listening to what God is telling us about our enemy. But God says, as wise as your enemy is, you're wiser, because you have me in you. Alright? To break this down. Now, I'm going to share something that I was shown 2 mornings ago, just as I was waking up. And like I said, I haven't been getting a lot of dreams and vision. And I hesitated to put up part 2. But she had fed me, the Spirit had fed me tons and tons of information. It was just, I was just blown away by what the Spirit was showing me. And just as I woke up, I think it was 2 mornings ago, I was shown a silver platter with a piece of paper in the middle of it that had the word mandate on it. And I picked the platter up, and under the platter was another piece of paper that said now. So I knew she was telling me I had to put this video up and that I should do it now. And that was the mandate given to me. I can't speak as to anybody else's mandates, our orders that we've been given to uphold. But I know that she was in a way telling me this mandate had been given to me on a silver platter. She's telling me, despite all the work and effort that I think I've made digging into the words and what's been revealed to me, she's telling me it wasn't of me. She set me straight. She said, this is not of you. I handed it to you on a silver platter. So, but this is my mandate. This is what she told me. So I have to go forth with it, and I have to show you, and I'm going to run out of time on this video. I can already see that just based on the information I have to share with you. Okay, so in Jeremiah, we were shown, we were forgotten the name of Baal, who Baal really is. The prophet that had a dream, let him tell a dream. All right, verse 29. Is not my word like as fire? That's like a representation of the lightning as well, fire, the law that goes forth. Saith the Lord, and like a hammer that breaketh the rock in pieces. What rock? That's the false foundation. Verse 30, therefore, behold, I am against the prophets, saith the Lord, that steal my words, every one from his neighbor. Verse 31, behold, I am against the prophets, saith the Lord, that use their tongues, that's your sword, their tongues, and say, he saith. Verse 32, behold, I am against them that prophesy false dreams, saith the Lord, and do tell them, and cause my people to err by their lies, and by their lightness. Yet I sent them not, nor commanded them. Therefore they shall not profit this people at all, saith the Lord God. Verse 33. This is where we're going to prove our case, and it's going to link us to Isaiah 46. Okay? Now we have to view ourselves like we're lawyers in a sense, each and every one of us, and we're presenting a case or a portion of the case that's given to us. All right? So these last verses here in Jeremiah becomes absolutely important into proving what went on in the Old Testament with Baal worship. All right? So here, Mother God says, verse 33, and when this people or the prophet or a priest shall ask thee, saying, what is the burden of the Lord? Now remember, what did we read in Isaiah 46? The burden of the Lord, the burden of the Lord, right? So before we read these verses in Jeremiah, we're going to read these that we studied in a previous video. We're going to read these first 4 verses in Isaiah 46. Baal boweth down, Nebu stoopeth, their idols were upon the beasts and upon the cattle, your carriages were heavy loaden, they are a burden to the weary beast. Verse 2, they stooped, they bowed down together, they could not deliver the burden, but themselves are gone into captivity. Verse 3, hearken unto me, O house of Jacob, and all the remnant of the house of Israel, which are born or carried by me from the belly, from the womb, which are carried from the womb, verse 4, and even to your old age, I am she. And even to hoar hairs will I carry you. I have made, and I will bear, even I will carry, and will deliver you. This is mother, all right? And this is mother speaking again. And she says in verse 33 of Jeremiah 23, and when this people or the prophets or a priest shall ask thee, saying, what is the burden of the Lord? Thou shalt then say unto them, what burden? I will even forsake you, saith the Lord. You say it's a burden to me? See, they were trying to, what they were really trying to do when you get down to it, they were trying to debase the feminine God. That's what this is all about. And they were saying, the burden of the Lord, the burden of the Lord. You know, and she says, don't worry. You'll be no burden to me, because I'll forsake you. I won't deliver you. You can deliver yourselves. You're all gods. Deliver yourselves. All right? This is what this is showing us. It says, what burden? I will even forsake you. Don't worry. You won't be no burden to me. Verse 34, and as for the prophet and the priest and the people that shall say, the burden of the Lord, the burden of the Lord, I will even punish that man and his house. Verse 35, thus shall ye say, everyone to his neighbor, and everyone to his brother, what had the Lord answered, and what had the Lord spoken? Verse 36, and the burden of the Lord shall ye mention no more. You will not say it's a burden unto me. For every man's word shall be his burden. For ye have perverted the words of the living God, Mother Yahweh, of the Lord of the hosts of our God. Now this is where Baal worship comes into play. All right? And we're going to show you it in the nation of Israel and in their journey over the desert and how they became polluted. It's called a plague. It was called a plague. But she clearly says, you have perverted the word of the living God, me. My word, you've perverted it. And she says, every time you say burden, every time you say burden of the Lord, that burden will become your burden. You do it. You deliver yourself then. I'll forsake you. You'll be no burden to me. That's what she says. Verse 37, thus shalt thou say to the prophet, what hath the Lord answered thee, and what hath the Lord spoken? But since ye say the burden of the Lord, therefore thus saith the Lord, because ye say this word, the burden of the Lord, and I have sent unto you, saying, ye shall not say the burden of the Lord. Verse 39, therefore behold, I will utterly forget you, and I will forsake you, and the city that I gave you and your fathers, and cast you out of my presence. Verse 40, and I will bring an everlasting reproach upon you and a perpetual shame, which shall not be forgotten. This is Mother Yahweh speaking here. You see, because this began to be about the shifting of a male, from a female God, Mother Yahweh, to a male form. And that's where Baal took hold. All right? Now, Hosea 13 backs this up. It says, and when Ephraim spake trembling, Ephraim exalted, it says himself, in Israel. But when he offended in Baal, he died. Now, let's move down here, because I want to show you what they did here. Verse 9. O Israel, thou hast destroyed thyself, but in me is thine help. There's that word easier, female. And here's the NASB. It is your destruction, O Israel, that you are against me, against your help. It's to your own destruction. Verse 10. It says, where now is your king? That he may save you, he may deliver you in all your cities, and the rulers that you demanded, saying, give me a king, and give me princes to rule over me, like the surrounding Gentile nations. And I gave you a king in my anger, and I took away a king in my wrath. Ephraim's guilt is preserved, and his sin is stored up. Labor pains come on him. He is not a wise son. When the time comes, he will not be born. I will ransom them from the power of Sheol. I will redeem them from death. Death, where are your barbs? That's thorns. Where are your thorns? That's funny. Sheol, where is your sting? Compassion is hidden from mine eyes. So I'm going to leave that there. All right? Because you see what happened is, the nation of Israel saw all the other surrounding nations. And this is where we get into the deeper Baal worship. And I'm leaving behind, again, our study in Jude to pour through this deeper understanding. But we're going to go back in a minute to show you what was really going on in the nation of Israel, if I have time. But we're going to continue on in Jude right now because I can't get into all of this. Jeremiah 30 is going to link us to all of this deeper understanding. It's going to, as I get into the deeper understanding of what was happening to the nation of Israel, and their contamination from the surrounding nations through Balaam and Balak and what they did to this nation, and why they did it. The Spirit has shown me why they did it. And it's going to connect us to chapter 30 of Jeremiah. 6 verse 6 says, ask ye now, chapter 1 verse 6, chapter 30 verse 6, ask ye now and see whether a man does travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned pale and turned into paleness. Now, you know, this is their male god. Deliver yourself. This is what you wanted to bow down and worship. You saw the Gentile nations who had cast off the true God. And here you were, this little nation, flourishing under the rulership of Mother Yahweh's right hand, which was daughter Zion. Their rulers were daughters, women. And they had real power. And they did not want them as their rulers. Because you see, okay, let's talk about it a little bit before we continue on in Jude. You see, Balaam tried to curse the nation of Israel, all right? And he ended up with 4 oracles, or 4 blessings on the nation of Israel. And Balak gets mad, because Balak was a king from one of these surrounding Gentile nations who saw the nation of Israel flourishing under the rulership of women. This one little nation that had been set aside was flourishing under the rulership of these daughters of Zion. They were flourishing above and beyond any other nation, and they were worshiping Mother Yahweh. And all the surrounding nations were worshiping a male god, and they just couldn't have this. They just could not have this. So Balak hires Balaam to go in and curse them. And when Balaam can't do that, Balak says, well, if you can't curse them, then at least stop blessing them. He gets really mad. He says, I hired you to curse this nation. What good are you to me? You're blessing them. So Balaam does this. Balaam says, go get women from your nations and send them in to the Israelite men to seduce them. And we'll take the daughters of Zion out that way. We'll take Mother Yahweh's right hand out that way. And you know what? That's just what they did. And they stood on Baal Peor. And this is all linking us back to what Balaam brought in, which was Baal worship, exaltation of men. So these women come in, they act like sluts, whores, to the debasement of women. Men feel good. We know what this kind of thinking does. And begin to think, well, we don't need these daughters of Zion to rule over us. We don't need her as our queen. She was a queen over them, not a king. And we can prove that once we get in deep into the study of Baal and how it tainted them and became a plague. And so these whore daughters, they go in, they seduce these men of Israel, and then they begin to come against Moses. And that's shown us through Korah. Korah was one of the first that come in. He died along with 250 men. All right? And they were standing opposite the glory. The glory came down to meet. And it says Moses stands in the breach at this point. All right? Because Moses says, I'm willing to receive this glory as my rulership, as my head. These are my rulers. This is my ruler. Daughter Zion is my ruler. She's the one that shows me all things. Well, these men on the other side, after that contamination came in through these women, they were opposing this rulership. And they were saying, we don't want them anymore. All right? And it says they were actually coming against Moses. They were coming against Moses. They were coming against the belief of Moses, what Moses upheld to be true. That's why he factors into being a great witness in the end of days, which I don't know that I'm going to be able to touch on it. And I'm sorry if the video is so skewed, but there's just, I mean, it's so hard to pull it together in a way that anybody else is going to get it unless you go in and you start digging deep into Baal worship and how it contaminates. It's called a plague. It was called a plague. The seed of the whore nation was called a plague to the nation of Israel. And you see that. We'll touch on it again. And we see that with, what chapter was it? I wrote it down. Right. And we see that this is called the plague in the nation of Israel by this verse that we find. What chapter was it in? I wrote it down. Verse 27, Numbers 27. No, it's Numbers 25. So let's understand what the plague is that we're talking about here. It's the contamination, all right, of the seed is what we're looking at. Numbers 25, verse 6. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moses, and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Verse 7. And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand. Verse 8. And he went after the man of Israel into the tent, and he thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her, where? Her belly, her womb. So the plague was stayed from the children of Israel. It was the contamination of the woman's seed. You see, in the beginning, it was Eve that was blessed. Her seed was blessed. We know the nation of Israel represented Eve's seed. She was set apart. Adam didn't want her. He sets her out. He wants that whore spirit. This is all showing us, right? Okay? Because Israel fell for this contamination again. All right? And so when Balaam couldn't curse the nation of Israel, he said to Balak, go get the women. Go get your whores and send them in to seduce the men of Israel, and we'll take the daughter out that way. We'll take the seed out that way. We'll attack the woman's seed that way. Because she was protected. She was exalted as the rightful ruler of Israel. All right? This little nation represented the woman, segregated from the man. Eve was set out of Adam. He didn't want her, and he didn't want a covenant with her. But she did. She wanted a covenant with Mother Yahweh. She knew her. And so what do? They begin to attack Israel's seed is what they begin to do. And that's the women that they were attacking. They were after the women, the contamination of the women. And so they bring in these whores to take out the men so that they then can take out the rulers. And that's what we see happening. I know, we're away from Jude here. We're going to get back on track. Did I bring it here with me? I thought I did bring it. But we see this in... You mean I did not bring that chapter with me? I didn't. Well, that's odd. Okay, that's fine. So we see it in Psalms 106. And did I write it down? Because in Psalms 106, Mother says, fine, if the nation of Israel will not hearken to the daughters of Zion, and they want to cast them off for Baal worship, for exalting man, all right, and for casting down my daughters of Zion as their rightful rulers, if they want to do that, then let's go and see what it says here. Psalms 106. This is the oath made by daughter Zion, and this is by Mother Yahweh. Therefore, okay, we'll pick it up in verse 24. Psalms 106, verse 24. Yea, they despise the pleasant land. They believe not his word, her word. Verse 24. But murmured in their tents and hearkened not unto the voice of the Lord, which is daughter Zion. You see, Yahweh, Mother Yahweh, rules through her strong right hand, which is her daughter Zion. So the casting off of daughter Zion is the same as casting off Mother Yahweh, which is what they were doing. Therefore, she, this is he, she lifted up her hand. This is a symbol of an oath being made. Therefore she lifted up her hand against them to overthrow them in the wilderness. Verse 27, to overthrow their seed also among the nations, and to scatter them in the lands. She did this in the wilderness. This was a promise. She says, if you want to cast off my strong right hand, my daughter Zion's rule, then you'll be no different than the Gentile nations. You'll be no different. There's nothing special about you. So why should you have the rulership? I'll cast my daughters that you are rejecting out into the other lands. And that's just what she did. And that takes us, okay? It says to overthrow their seed also among the nations, and to scatter them in the lands. Verse 28, they joined themselves unto Baal Peor. You see? And ate the sacrifice of the dead. Verse 29, thus they provoked, it says Ham. That's italicized, by the way, so it's not there. It's imposed on the text. Thus they provoked, I'm going to say her, Mother Yahweh, and the daughters on, to anger with their inventions, and the plague break in upon them. All right? So they allowed the contamination. All right? See, Adam didn't want the rulership, or didn't want the glory, which was offered through Eve. He sets her out. He doesn't want her. And that's what the nation of Israel represents. The separation, all right, of the glory. And Israel was flourishing under these daughters' rulership, all right? And you see, Moses' job was to go to that glory, and then he'd come back to the people, and he'd tell the people what Mother Yahweh was telling them. All right? We're looking at a feminine here. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if I'm one standing alone. I don't care. I know what the Spirit's showing me to be true, and she's showing it through the Word. Because the only way we're going to win our case is by breaking down the Word. I don't care what anybody says. I'm not going to argue it, and I'm not going to debate that. I said it once, and I'm not. I'm going to present it. That's my mandate been given to me. And she has given me another word. She says, this is my special area, Baal, to understand the contamination of Baal and the seed. And I'm not saying that's RH negative or RH positive. We're not based on that. You know, we're based on the Spirit that indwells us now. That was clearly shown in this oath as well. She says, fine, you don't want to receive my hand, my daughters of Zion. And we know these are the daughters of Zion. We've connected the fact that the hand, the right hand of Mother Yahweh, is these daughters of Zion. We've connected that. So we know that that's who ruled over the nation of Israel. Because of the hand, God comes into play every time when we're talking about this. But they've taken the word and they've really twisted it. This is how the enemy has shored up her and his strategy of war against us. And the hidden ones are these daughters of Zion that are now embedded in us daughters who receive Christ. And it's now there, hidden within us. And it's that Spirit that's hid within us that was originally in these daughters that were cast out into the fields of the Gentiles. And you see that referenced in Romans 11. I know, I'm off track really good here. What does it say in Romans 11? For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, I can't talk. What shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? Talking about the daughters of Zion being received back. Alright? And we're also told that it was the right hand of God that took the land. That was daughter Zion went in and took the land so that they might go in and take it again. So we're looking at the spiritual and physical overlay at the same time. That's what we don't get. That's what we really don't understand, how the two were walking as one on the earth. And that's why it says in the end days, my glory will manifest. These daughters are literally going to manifest again. And they were the ones that was the pillar the pillar of fire by night that walked behind and protected them, and was the cloud overhead that went forth through the day. It was these daughters. It was these daughters. But the nation of Israel, when they got contaminated by Baal worship, by these surrounding Gentile nations, which are represented by Adam. These are the lineage of Adam. Eve's seed is represented by this little nation of Israel, who they all surrounded and absolutely hated, and was watching them flourish under the power of woman's rulership. These daughters of Zion. And they were a spiritual entity with great power. And the daughters, these whore daughters, of course, through these wicked sons of these Gentile nations, knew what it meant to take them out, to spiritually debase them, meant to send in these whore daughters and have the whores exalted. And it would eventually lead to a very weakening position of the hand of the daughters of Zion, to the point that they were literally cast down into the physical world. That's what it looks like. Now, I understand it's a hard theology, but it's really not. It's really quite simple when you let the Spirit lead you. And you all take offense to woman, but that's what this has always been about. You know, we've always kind of took ourselves right out of the equation, and it's always been to the exalting of the man. When you do that, you're never going to find the true path, and we're to pursue that true path. Now, let's go back to Jude. I got really off track there, and I realized I could flesh that out a lot better than what I did. And it's getting to be a long video. So let's continue on here. Let me get this out of play. And like I said, I'm not going to argue it. I won't argue it with anybody. And it says, likewise also these filthy dreamers. Well, we went through that word. I'm going to take that out. And take that out. These filthy dreamers. Okay. Oh, there it is. I did have it here. Isn't that funny? The plague. Thus they provoked him to anger in their inventions, and the plague brake in upon them. That was the contamination of the seed of the woman, where mother was forced to protect it by casting it out into the fields of the Gentiles. Okay. And they despise dominion. That's the next word we're going to look at. All right, so we're getting back to Jude 1:8. Likewise also these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despise dominion, and speak evil of dignities. So the word for dominion is your Strong's Greek 2963. All right, it's a feminine. It means lordship, divine or angelic lordship, domination, dignity, usually with reference to a celestial hierarchy. And we have a feminine now? You know, my whole life, well, not, yeah, pretty much my whole life. But the last group in particular of saints that we were with, you know, they would often say this, the angels are sexless. They have no gender. They would often say that. But every time you would suggest that they were female angels, such a thing as female angels, they would up and arm. But then they'd have no issues with referring to angels as he appeared. He appeared. The Old Testament, that's all it ever says, is he appeared. The angel appeared. He appeared. And yet they're sexless. And yet we get it subtly ingrained in our brain, not so subtly, that they're all male. This is showing us. It's a feminine noun. And it's a reference to celestial hierarchy. Now, did I underline anything else here? No. All right. So it says they despise dominion. They despise them. And speak evil. The word evil here is Strong's Greek 987. I speak evil against. I blaspheme. I use abusive, spurious language about God. It says or men. I'm going to say women. And properly refusing to acknowledge good, worthy of respect or veneration, hence to blaspheme, which reverses moral values. All right? Which is what these men of old, who snuck in beside us after we'd received the true gospel, and they snuck in and they contaminated. If you don't think this current theology has taught to us, it hasn't been tainted by Baal, Baal belief, Baal theology that exalts a he, and a father instead of Mother Yahweh, then perhaps you've not been assigned this mandate to understand it deeply and And I understand the only reason that I do is because it's been given to me on a silver platter. I get that now. You know, I think I've worked. I ain't done nothing. I still, all the work and effort I'd have put into it, she's saying I would not have gotten it. Except that she designed it this way. So I have to go with that. Dignities. What's the last one? I'll try to get through this. Likewise also these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despise dominion, and speak evil of dignities. So the word there for dignities is your Strong Greek's 1391. All right? And it's a feminine, again. And it means exercising personal opinion which determines value, corresponds to glory. Both terms conveys God's infinite and intrinsic worth, substance, and essence. It literally means what evokes good opinion. That something has inherent intrinsic worth. All right? And if we go in, it says, in a wider sense, in which angels are called, and it gives a Greek word there, I don't know what it is, as being spiritual beings of preeminent dignity. All right? And it's a feminine now. And they'll tell us there's no such thing as anything feminine in the heavens. That's what they love to do. And then they tell us of these men of old. And then we're given this beautiful I don't know, encouragement in I'll get it, in Jude 3. Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that ye should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. You are in a battle. Now, you know, current theology says, we'll take this Bible and we'll just plop it in your lap. You ain't got to contend for nothing. Oh yeah, they'll say contend for Christ, and that's it. They feel nothing else. Well, if that was all it was, then why do we got this great big book telling us all kinds of laws and all kinds of rulership and headship doctrine and all kinds of this and all kinds of that? Well, it's there because they imposed it on the text. And until you break down how Baal worship, which exalted a male god, because they did not want the rulership of the daughters of Zion, which was Mother Yahweh's strong right hand in the way that she ruled. They rejected her. All right? And this is all in there. And you're saying, no, it's not. Yes, it is. This is the mandate I've been given. You know, and I don't have to defend it. And I'm not going to defend it. I've been given dreams and visions. But like I said, I can't base my case on dreams and visions. I literally have to go in and dig it out of the Word, and it is there to be dug out. I'm here to tell you, brothers and sisters, it is there. And you're going to find it once you get put onto Baal worship, or Baal worship. I keep saying Baal. It's Baal. So, let's look at that again. Let me see here, if I've got this all worked out. This video isn't thorough like I wanted it to be. But let's see what they did. We'll look at Psalms 11. We'll read Psalm 11. To the chief musician, a psalm of David, in the Lord put I my trust. How say ye to my soul, flee as a bird to your mountain? Verse 2, for lo, the wicked bend their bow. They make ready their arrow upon the string, that they may privily shoot at the upright in heart. Verse 3, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? So if they took these foundations out a long time ago, what makes you think that we put them back in place? You know, the only way that the Jews knew the law was when they were cleaning out the temple, they found a copy of the laws. They had become so far removed from the laws. Now by that time they didn't know. They were basing it on written words. And so if we've lost the full understanding, the full meaning of the text, who's going to show it to us? It's going to be the Spirit. And that's what she tells us over and over again. Christ himself says, do not follow the vain traditions of men to worship God. She says, they approach me vainly. with their lips and their vain traditions, but their hearts are far from me. They don't even know who I am. So, you can say I'm wrong. This is my mandate, and I'm going to teach it the way that the Spirit shows me to. And you can hate me for that. I'm going to be hated for it. I don't care if I get 40 views. Which is about what I'm getting. That's funny. I think it's funny. And that's okay. Because I believe in the plans of God. And they will be revealed in God's time. So the Lord is in her holy temple. The temple belongs to the glory. The Lord's throne is in heaven. Her eyes behold, her eyelids try the children of men. The Lord trieth the righteous, but the wicked, and him and her that loveth violence, her soul hateth. Upon the wicked she shall rain snares, fire, and brimstones, and an horrible tempest. This shall be the portion of their cup. For the righteous Lord loveth righteousness, and her countenance does behold the upright. Now, all right, let's look. I'm running out of time. Let's look at Moses. Okay, and I close my Bible. Okay, we'll be quick. And I'm just going to share with you what the Spirit has shown me. All right, and I'll only share a small portion of it. All right, so yet Michael, this is verse 9. Jude 1 verse 9. Yet Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, the Lord rebuke thee. Now, if we recall the reason why Moses ended up being buried in the wilderness, all right, which meant that he was not allowed to go into the promised land. Now, there was a fault created, all right, by our enemy that actually prevented Moses from entering into the promised land. He was not allowed to enter into the promised land. And that was when he was supposed to speak kindly to the rock, he smote it. All right? And so this worked in effect in Michael here. This is the daughter Zion, to her benefit. Because who better to have witness to the truth that she gave in the beginning, evidencing that she did not depart from Mother Yahweh's truths, that she always stood for him, and she had found a man in which to work through. That was Moses, that received these principles of truth that she worked through. Who better to have as your final witness on the stand, or at least one of them, testifying to you as you go forth, as these daughters of Zion go forth. He's going to testify and say, yeah, what they're saying, this was the truth in the very beginning as taught to me. And she taught it to me. So who better to take the stand on behalf of your case than the one that was there from the beginning? All right? And he's a good one to have, as is Elijah, because he's going to testify to Baal and what they were doing to contaminate the seed. So when Moses struck the rock, he immediately became disallowed. But who caused him to strike the rock? It was Satan. It was Lucifer. So she's got no legal recourse here. She can't really contest daughter Zion using Moses as a witness on the stand, so to speak. She can't. So what does Adonai say here? And it is Adonai here. This is Micaiah. This is Adonai, the daughter Zion standing here. They got Michael. They're going to do that. That's the strategy of our enemy. And if we expect to prevail, we better know all this fancy footwork that she's performed and he's performed to keep our heads submerged. And you see that in Psalms 83 against the hidden ones. This is the snare that they laid. And it tells you that also with Baal worship. This is the snare. They fell for the snare, it says, in the desert as they wandered, in the wilderness as they wandered. They fell for this snare of Baal worship, which continued to contaminate them. And that's why the nation of Israel was never saved. You see, they fell for the wrong thing. And so she says to Lucifer, Satan here, she says, the Lord rebuke thee. You can't contest me calling Moses to the stand as a witness to the truth, because he was found in violation because of what you caused him to do. You see? You see how it begins to make sense? I wouldn't have come to this truth or to this understanding, and you don't have to agree with me. I would not have come to this understanding had the Spirit not shown me what the true violation in the beginning was, and how it leads to the casting off of the true and only living God, Mother Yahweh. And that's what this is all about. And I'm here to testify to that truth as one of the daughters of Zion, I believe. I may not be. But I believe the things that I've been shown verifies that I am one of these daughters. Reborn. We're being reborn. We're being birthed. And we're being shown our mandates to go forth, because we're getting ready to, I believe, transform. And the way that we transform, believe it or not, is connected to taking this yoke off of our neck. And that's that snare that they've placed upon us, so that we don't see who we are becoming. And so that's what this is all about. And so that's a fascinating verse, really, because you have to understand it's about the court of law. You're really seeing what's the prosecuting attorney against the district attorney, sort of thing. We'll just use that analogy here. And Lucifer saying, Satan saying, we contest them allowing this witness on the stand. We contest it. And they said, well, you've got no recourse here, because the reason why he's permitted is because of what you did. So we're looking at law to a large extent. You know, when we're looking at the term witnesses, you know, you have to draw your correlations here, your understanding here. And so this is the one that I've been given. And I know it's a pretty messed up video. Forgive me if you have trouble following me. If you have a legitimate question, something that you're curious about or would like to know, and maybe I've been given the answer, maybe I haven't yet, maybe you've been given the answer, share it. But like I said, this is my mandate. I'm not going to debate it. And the more I get into my studies, the more I'm aware of who the true living God is, who was rejected. And because we rejected Mother Yahweh's principles, and these daughters of Zion, in the very beginning, she turned her back on us, and she says, fine, you know. And she says, you know, you think you can deliver yourself? Deliver yourself. You know, if you're such a burden to a female god, then fine, deliver yourself. You know, you want to worship he, deliver yourself. You know, and it's interesting, because I was looking, and I got to go soon, at the word high priest. You know, that word high isn't in the Old Testament. Christ is stated as being a priest. It doesn't even say high priest. A priest after the order of Melchizedek. Well, that takes us to our two rulers in Zechariah 6. It says the office will be between them both. And so you're actually looking at a queen and a priest. That's what it says, and it actually correlates to a verse in Revelation. So I have to go. I'm running out of time. God bless all my brothers and sisters. Didn't want to offend anybody. Hope I don't, but I have my mandate I have to go forth with. And love y'all. And love you, Nick. Another video for you. Take care. Hope you don't have to work too hard, but I know that you do. So hope y'all have a blessed and good day.